reminders to the people on Zoom to sign in. Thank you. Hi everyone. So yeah, sign in if you haven't yet, and we'll get started. Chris, you want to come up here? So yeah, you guys probably have heard of Chris. Okay. For what? You want to do a video?
Okay, I don't know if this will work out because I'm gonna have to switch the projector. It should be fine because this will still be running in the back. I think. Right, in theory. Let me just make sure I'm not looking at anything. Yeah, let's see if it's going on.
I don't know.
If it'll still show.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, you know what? Maybe I log on to here.
Yeah, you could.
But I need to do some download shenanigans.
Stop sharing.
The translation might not be between the previous thing. These? Maybe let's try this. So I'm gonna be downloading my own slides.
Yeah, you might as well do it about this twice. Yeah.
This is gonna be really painful. Over here. I wrote it down. No thanks.
That's always
Cool.
So we go back to Zoom. Share screen. Just the
I thought it was in a tab.
green.
Yeah, should we just do this? We can just do this. So I could fix things in post as it's going by. Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Crisrael Lucero. Unfortunately, I think it's already been leaked where I work, so I can't hide that. And I was gonna make it a big surprise and everything, but whatever. In general, this is going to be my journey from graduating at Cal Poly Pomona, and now I'm back at Cal Poly Pomona. So very exciting. Some would say I peaked in college, so that's why I'm back. And let's go on a little about me. I'm from the greater LA area. I think a lot of people that go to Cal Poly Pomona generally are from LA or Orange County. I am literally straight out of Compton, grew up there. Yeah, not too surprising, I guess, but graduated here in 2016. So what is that, 7-8 years ago? Which doesn't feel that long, but at the same time, I don't believe time actually passed during the pandemic. So it's really not that long. When I was here, I was a big hackathon enthusiast. Even now, I'm still a pretty big hackathon enthusiast. Over at Google, they just finished a hackathon for the org that I work in. So a lot of the stuff that people created were pretty cool. And I'm a former CSS E-board member. My second year of going to Cal Poly, I was the vice president. And the third year, I was co-president with one of my close friends. So just some legal stuff, getting this out of the way. My opinions are my own and do not represent Google or Cal Poly Pomona, since I am now employed by both. This is just some, in case this is being recorded and all that, if I end up saying something weird about either, it should not be representative of what their actual opinions are. Okay, cool. So we're gonna get into the time that I was at Cal Poly Pomona. I'm skipping my first year because I didn't really do anything except just take a bunch of classes. I was going to Mount Sac at the same time and taking classes there and just getting a lot of units, because getting classes here, I hear it's still the same, or it's still pretty terrible unless you have priority registration. Does that
Yeah.
I heard parking's better though.
No.
Parking's good now? No, not true. It was really easy with me with the faculty pass. So I don't know what the what the problem was. No, I'm just kidding. I also saw the price that they make you pay for parking passes now. For faculty, we pay like $60 or something. And then when I saw what everyone else pays, I'm like, this is kind of, I know, right? First of all, I was surprised about that. Like, oh, I have to pay for my own parking pass, but whatever. So yeah, I was just trying to get as many units as possible, because when you have more units, you have an easier time, in theory, of getting classes. During my second year of Cal Poly, that's when things really started to pick up. That's when I was vice president for this club. And at the time, there were not really that many other computer science-based clubs. It was pretty much CSS, and then we had like NISA, FAST, and Swift. But those clubs kind of felt like, tech in general. Some of them felt a little bit more like CIS oriented instead of CS oriented. So I invested my time in this club because it was really the only thing going on, besides some engineering clubs in the other buildings. But that's when I started participating in hackathons. And the first hackathon that I won something was at LA Hacks in 2015. It was a great little hack in Snapchat, because Snapchat was the main sponsor, where you could inject bots onto their servers. So it was a big vulnerability that they had, and we injected this bot to allow people to start scavenger hunt games with each other. And it was really fun. We got a lot of attention. We won some prizes. And the Monday after the hackathon finished, Snapchat immediately pushed out an update to fix it, because it was like people realized, oh, you could just inject any bot into Snapchat servers, and then people can interact with this bot and do crazy stuff. We can't allow people to have fun, so we need to patch that up. I was also the ICPC team captain. I don't know if that's happening anymore. Does anyone know about the ACM? What is it? Intercollegiate Programming Competition. So I'm guessing our school doesn't send teams there anymore, but this is competitive programming, which is very, very different from most types of work that you would do, I guess. It's very math heavy, algorithm heavy. But if you're familiar with like leak code or tech interviews in general, this is harder than that. So when I was doing interviews, they were easy compared to what you have to do to participate in ICPC. We never like won the region or anything. It's always UCLA or USC who wins the Southern California region. and then they compete in like the global competition. But you know, it's for fun. During this time, I also interned at JPL during the school year, which is really tough because, as you may know, JPL is in Pasadena. So I had really weird work hours where I would work at 12 p.m. because the drive would be, there wouldn't be any more traffic going from here to Pasadena. And then I would leave work around 8:30 to 9 because then the traffic isn't bad coming back. But it was depressing because you're driving at night and you don't really see your friends during those days that you're working and all that. During that time, they started doing research in CUDA programming for NVIDIA graphics cards, and they were training machine learning models because they were like, you know, machine learning was super cool in the 80s, but then computers weren't good enough. But we're starting to research on how to do this on graphics cards, which is funny because nowadays, like everyone does that, right? It's a norm. This is what is known. But back then they were like, whoa, you know, graphics cards are really good at doing like really simple math, so we should try it out. And it was just in its extremely early phases before, you know, AI ended up blowing up and everyone does everything on NVIDIA graphics cards now. So yeah, I did that to work on error correction codes for optical sensors. A lot of my code is on spacecraft landing gear. So that's really cool. I think that's the coolest part of the internship, is being able to say that things you wrote are in space right now. But it was a very research heavy internship. So not too rigorous on the engineering, very research focused. So I wanted to try something out. I wanted to try out a different internship that was more engineering focused, but still low level where you're working on devices, because I am not very adept at web development. I'm actually quite terrible, which is unfortunate because I have professionally wrote in 3 different JavaScript frameworks, but that's neither here nor there. My wife is a front-end web developer and she's very good. So it's great because we both work on extremely different things. So when we come home, we don't talk about work and we just live life, because she will not know anything I'm saying and I don't understand anything she's saying. So it's great. So then we'll move on to the final year of me at Cal Poly. Oh no, this is the summer. Okay. So the summer, because I had just interned on a research heavy internship, I wanted to do something more engineering focused. So I interned at the Raytheon Space and Airborne Systems, which now they're called Raytheon Technologies, I think. I worked on a couple of things: radar emulation, environment simulation. I worked on a couple of fighter aircraft. And this was a very, very engineering focused internship. So I think I was able to experience the best of both worlds. And during this time, around the summer, I joined the Scholarship for Service, the Cyber Corps. Does anyone know what the Cyber Corps Scholarship for Service is? Dr. Hussein runs this program. Oh yeah, I think, did you stop by my officers?
Yeah.
Right, okay. So this basically like pays for your school, and then you get some research stipend, so you get a lot of money, and then for every year that you're in the scholarship, you have to work for the government that many years. And at that time, I was like, I already interned at JPL, which is a federally funded research and development center, which qualifies as government work. And then I worked at Raytheon, which is a government contractor. So I was like, you know, I think I'm more geared to wanting to work for the government anyway. As you may have guessed, growing up in Compton, my family had a lot of financial turmoil. I witnessed my mom working a bunch of different jobs and getting laid off several times. And I was like, that seems really shitty. And I don't want to experience going through that several times. So the government is really, really stable, so might as well do that. Plus, they paid for like all your expenses while you're in school and gave you a lot of money, and it was pretty cool. So final year at Cal Poly. This is when I became the president of CSS. Won prizes at both Hack Poly, which is this school's hackathon, and then Hack UCI. I went to way more hackathons, but a lot of times when I went to hackathons, I was just there for like free food. Sometimes I developed something, sometimes I didn't. It was mostly because you got to travel to a bunch of different schools and compete. And if like back, I guess 8 years ago, the hackathon community was really tight knit. So everyone really knew each other. So everyone would approve everyone's travel to different schools around the United States. So, you know, going to Stanford and Berkeley, and then going across the country to MIT and Harvard. and everyone kind of just knew each other. Now hackathons are a little bit, I don't know what the state of hackathons are right now. So if anyone has been frequently going to hackathons, talk to me afterwards, because I'm curious to see what things are like. So at this time, it's time to get a job. So I started interviewing with a bunch of places, but I had to work for the government afterwards. So I went to a bunch of places and interviewed, and I got like about, 10 offers, mostly government. And then I got a couple of private company offers, mostly because I wanted to travel to where their headquarters are, as opposed to I couldn't take the job offer. But if they fly you out and they're going to feed you for like however many long days you're there, like I love free stuff. So it's like free food and free travel, get to visit a bunch of cities. That's great. So, Apple in Cupertino, and then Amazon, they sent me to their Seattle office. So got offers from both of them, but I couldn't go. And then Apple actually has a really good way of saying, oh, you have a contract with the government, we'll pay it off for you. But at the time I was still in the mindset where it's like, I want to go to a stable job and all that. So I didn't go there. I was choosing mostly between the Lincoln Labs in Boston, or where I ended up going in San Diego. And I remember I had an offer from the FBI, but it was to go to Kansas City, Missouri. So if you're from Kansas City, Missouri, I'm sorry, I don't mean to insult your hometown, but there was no way I was gonna live in Kansas City, Missouri. And Dr. Hussein, who runs the program, really wanted us to get into 3-letter agencies, so NSA, FBI, and CIA. And he was like, you need to go to the FBI, because it would create a funnel for him to let future scholars get in there. And then Dr. Sang, who has retired, has anyone been able to take a class from Dr. Sang before she retired? No one? I think, does anyone remember when she retired? I think 2020 or 2021, which makes sense because that's the peak of COVID, and I think I would get burnt out at that time too. So she ends up walking into the office, and she is a really big mentor for me. She was one of my favorite professors going here. And she said, oh, you should go to San Diego because that's really close and I have family there and it's beautiful. And I just see Dr. Hussein look at her with the most angry eyes as her completely destroying his plan to create a funnel. So then I ended up going to San Diego. But I guess I still have some stuff here for when I was at Cal Poly. In my graduating class, this is a large portion of the e-board that was there. So this is me. These were to my 2 roommates, and they were the founding members of She Codes. So we were living together, and then they were like, we need to have a space or a club that allows us to, come together in a safe space for women in computing. And I'm like, that's a great idea. ACM has an ACMW, and you should create a chapter. So they went ahead and created She Codes, and I was sort of their ghostwriter. I don't want to take any credit away from them, but they hated doing administrative work, and I was really unfortunately good at doing administrative work. So I did all the paperwork, and they just had to sign off on anything I wrote, and bam, She Codes was created. At the same time, my ex-girlfriend's friend created the Game Development and Design Club. So in 2016, 2 big clubs ended up getting really big. So it was really cool seeing that. And then, now CSS ended up having their members kind of split off, which is always a good thing, because it's always good, in my opinion, to have students have a choice where they want to go. And the year after, my ex-girlfriend's little sister ended up helping founding the Software Engineering Association. So, but I was done with school, and that was all. I was ready to head out. I was going to San Diego. I went to this place called, at the time, it was called SSC Pacific, or SPAWAR, and it was in San Diego. We lived in this, or not lived, but we were located in this beautiful little peninsula here called Point Loma. There is a bigger office somewhere here near Old Town, but it's called Old Town because usually the older people of the workforce work in that one, and then the younger people work in the really nice offices in Point Loma. San Diego is genuinely a great place to live. I loved everything about San Diego. I was just there over the weekend for one of my best friend's weddings. So we go back quite frequently. Then they had their name changed to NIWIC Pacific, and I'm sure in like 2 years they're going to change their name again because government research labs, for whatever reason, like every 5 or so years, they get a new commander, and then the commander's like, I'm going to leave my mark. And the only way I have any power of doing anything is by changing the name of the organization. So that's it. Like they didn't contribute anything. It's like that Sailor Moon meme where it's like, my work here is done, and Tuxedo Mask leaves, and Sailor Moon's like, you didn't do anything. But yeah, that's pretty much how it is interacting with commanders. But that job was an extremely unique job because we're a center of about 4,000 to 5,000 scientists and engineers. But I was a traveling researcher. So I was one of 2 or 3 positions in the entire organization that got to travel the world. Generally, the government tries to have you not travel as much as possible. And if you are going to travel, you go to Washington, D.C. But here, I went to, like every other month, I was in a different country. And if I wasn't in a different country, I was in a different state. So I was flying in and out. I think the worst time I've had it was, so I ended up meeting my wife here. I proposed to her in London, and then they flew me back to San Diego. They immediately flew me to Australia, and I came back to San Diego. Then they immediately flew me to France, took the underground tunnel back to London, stopped at DC, and then came back. So my wife, we were just newly engaged, and then she didn't see me for 10 weeks because I was in different countries for the entire time. And then her parents were like, where is he? And I'm like, I'm working, sorry. So because I was a traveling researcher, it was a lot of publications. So it was very similar to the first job or the first internship I had, published over a dozen papers, but at the same time did a lot of robotics, autonomous vehicle work. When you're able to do research, you get to make your own proposals to different sponsors to work on whatever you want to work on. So I had a couple proposals to work on augmented and virtual reality or mixed reality. I worked on AI in games. So, doing machine learning in StarCraft is really popular. So we did stuff like that. Yeah, met my wife. So the rough timeline was at Cal Poly for 3 years. Around 2016, that's when I started working at NIWIC. And while I was working at NIWIC, I started going to grad school part-time. If you've noticed, I like to keep busy. I don't like to have a lot of free time to myself because I have an illness that makes me always have to be busy. So I started going to USC part-time at grad school, and it was a good experience, but it was like I had to spread it out quite a lot because I was only taking 1 class a semester. And then I took a couple of semesters off, which was a big mistake because it was when COVID was happening. So my wife and I were getting married, and I'm like, I'm going to take a semester off so that I could focus on that. And then COVID happened, and everyone was basically getting an A for having a pulse. So I got really upset because I could have just taken like 3 really hard classes and then like, oh, this guy's still breathing, A. So that was my mistake. And then they stopped doing that after that semester, and they went back to normal. Still remote, but like relatively back to normal. And during part of my grad school, which if you don't know, USC is stupid expensive to attend, and I would not have attended here if my workplace wasn't paying for it. So I think one of the great things about going to Cal Poly is if you're an in-state student, your tuition is very, very manageable. I think I had like a couple of grants and scholarships even before joining the Cyber Corps. And it paid for everything. With that and my part-time jobs and my internship money, I was able to pay for everything for Cal Poly. And then USC is stupid expensive, but the government paid for it because they said they would pay for it. And that was part of my contract when I signed with them. So you'll pay for any grad school that I go to. And they're like, sure, how expensive could it be? Then it was USC. So it's like, yes, it is expensive. And during that time, that's when I decided to transition over, because if you remember, I was a traveling scientist, right? Doing a lot of research. And then what happens when COVID hit, a all travel stopped, right? So the biggest perk of the job, which was being able to travel the world, was completely taken away. And at that point, I'm like, okay, I think it's time to find a new job. But it was great at that time because the government reacted so poorly to COVID that basically for 6 to 8 months, no one did any work because they didn't know how to get anyone to do work when COVID happened. So I ended up picking up, does anyone know what Final Fantasy 14 is? Yeah, so then I got addicted to Final Fantasy 14. And then I quit when I started working at Google. So I joined Google mid 2021. And what I do now, what I do now is I work on operating systems. So I'm an OS engineer. When people say full stack these days, they usually mean full stack for like a web development thing, which is the back end, front end, like middleware or whatever. When I say that I'm full stack, I literally am from the kernel all the way up to the application layer. Who's familiar with the OSI model? Did you ever all take the networking class here, or what else? Computer architecture? Does computer architecture go over OSI? No, does computer networks, does operating systems go over OSI? They should. Oh, that's strange. So yes, I am
everything like the physical layer up to things like HTTP and those kind of stuff. We learned that in one class, but then that professor was like just came over from UCI to teach us.
Oh, okay, I know who you're talking about. So I literally work on the entire stack for this, which is fun, but I mostly work on, the team is called cross device. So it's between how operating systems communicate with other operating systems. So if you're familiar with this icon, which I'm sure unless you own like a Google Pixel or something, Samsung has it too, but that's the nearby share icon. So it's essentially Google's version of AirDrop.
That looks like what is it called? Like a Discord partner logo thing.
Yeah, and then this is called Phone Hub, which exists on Chrome OS, and it lets you control your phone and do a bunch of different stuff just from your Chromebook without having to look at your phone. So, you know, a couple of controls, what you were recently looking at, photos you've taken, if you want to download them, and then launch apps from your phone. And this is actually a very new feature. It's pretty cool. You can launch any of your apps from your phone, and then it streams on your Chromebook, and you can just use it like normal, which is great when you want to play Pokemon Go without having to pick up your phone and play Pokemon Go. Okay. So what has happened since? So I worked at Google for 2 years, and then you can't see it here, it's kind of cut off, but then I came back here. After finishing grad school, that allows you to be an adjunct lecturer pretty much anywhere. And I really love the school here. So I came back, which is kind of a pain to drive up to, but you know, it was really close to Dr. Tang and Dr. Hussein. So I wanted to come back and teach. So that's why the presentation is from Cal Poly Pomona to Cal Poly Pomona. Really peaked from college. So I'm back to relive the college days. This is my first semester teaching, I'm an adjunct lecturer. Generally, I'm looking to teach 1 class a semester and may increase it to 2. And I'm currently teaching CS 2600, which some of you are in, which is cool. And the first exam is today. So, so I'm gonna figure out. Yeah, so I'm gonna figure out how to use the printer a little later. If you're interested in coming to me for office hours, you're more than welcome. Monday, virtually, you have to email me to set it up, but it's at 4:30 to 5:20. And Tuesdays and Thursdays, which I am on campus, it's 4:30 to 5:20 also. I'm on campus earlier in the day. So my schedule is I work the first half of the day at Google in Irvine, and then I drive during the afternoon because everyone is having their lunch hour. So I know no one's gonna try to reach out to me. And then I hide in a lab here that Dr. Hussein has let me take shelter in, because right now they have kind of put all the lecturers in one room. So it gets kind of chaotic there if a lot of people are coming in and students asking for help. And then at 4:30, then I go to the lecturer's room and start my office hours. But I finish my work day here and then start my other work day here at 4:30. So I'm contractually obligated to talk about this. Who here went to the Google? They had like a outreach event here a couple weeks ago. Did anyone go to that? Okay, cool. So you might have met, I don't know, it was Jeremy Ong and then two engineers, right? Or maybe three. I actually didn't go to this because this happened at 12 and I wasn't here yet. So I also felt like I don't want to take up a seat, right? Like I was kind of curious, but I heard that it was getting kind of packed in the room. So I was like, I'm not gonna crash to learn about how to how to intern for the place I already work for. But this is STEP internship and regular internship opportunities. If you didn't attend that this session, STEP internships are basically for first and second year computer science students, except you haven't had an internship yet. So maybe you have like a lot of units or you transferred over or something, so you have a ton of units. But if you don't have an internship, yet you're classified as a junior or senior, you can still do the STEP internship. Because it's for people with no internship experience. So the projects you get are a lot more doable for first-time interns. This past summer, I had STEP interns, and they were great. They were good. But yeah, so that's a pretty popular one. The bar for entry is a lot lower than going for a bachelor or master's internship also. So if you're not qualified for the STEP internship, you would instead be applying to go for just a regular BS/MS internship. So applications have been opened as of like a few weeks ago. And I think a big question that people ask are referrals. I can refer you, but I'm gonna let's be honest here, okay?
Yeah.
If I don't know you, then I can't write a good referral. And if I don't write a good referral, the recruiter is not going to feel obligated to look at your resume very thoroughly. So I want it to be like a process. If you want me to write a referral, I want you to email me your resume and then we'll work through it together. So I've been doing this for a lot of my students and a lot of people who have discovered that a Google person is here. So yeah, I want you to email me. We'll work through your resume, because if you just want a referral, I have not seen your resume at all. I'm essentially sticking my neck out for someone who I don't know. So yeah, I want to be able to start the process of working on things together. So I get to know you a little bit and then write something when I do the referral. In terms of LinkedIn, yes, you could add me on LinkedIn. Reviewing your resume, even if you're not applying for Google, if you just want resume reviews in general, I'm open to do that. I've helped a lot of people. This is the big one though, advising/mentoring projects and research. I cannot do this for you. I have a contract with Google to work here and what I can and can't do while working here. And one of them is, if you're doing research, I can't help you, especially if it has something to do with like a Google product. I can like give you advice, but I can't be like mentoring you in any like official capacity. Like if you're going to publish a paper and let's say I helped you with your research, you can't put my name as like a co-author unless you want me to go through the hoops and you're like, oh, you helped so much, blah, blah, blah. I really want to put you on the paper. Then I'd have to like start talking to our legal counsel and patent office and all that stuff. And yeah, same thing with projects. I can't help with projects in any official capacity other than giving general advice. I cannot teach any of you how to pass a Google interview. So I could do a referral for you, but I cannot mentor you on the general idea of passing an interview. There's a lot of resources out there anyway. And if you want to do like practice problems, that's fine, but I can't give you like a breakdown of how to pass it. All right, cool. Right, resume reviews. This is some general advice. This is actually not a finished slide, so let's just blast that out of here. And then go back to here. So we're gonna go from here. I really love my job and I have a great time. My wife also works at Google, so it makes it very convenient for us to carpool to the office. When she actually left the government earlier than I did and joined Google, so she just celebrated her like 5-year anniversary at Google. So she's been there longer. She's very famous at the Irvine office because she like runs like 5 or 6 different employee resource groups, which are essentially like clubs. And I am a lead for an employee resource group for the Southern California region. So Google in Venice Beach, Playa Vista, Irvine, San Diego, and Santa Barbara. Previously also Beverly Hills, but that office has gotten folded into the Venice Beach office. So all new graduates, I run a program for early career new graduate Googlers. So if you were to get an internship or you end up working there full time, you'll probably be interacting with me if you go into one of the Southern California offices. For now, I think, because I'm not really a new graduate anymore. I felt like, oh, I graduated so long ago. Why do you want me to be a lead? But then they're like, oh, but technically you graduated from USC very recently. So I'm like, that kind of makes sense, but not really. Like everyone around me is like 22 to 24 years old. And I'm like, I'm in my late 20s. So I don't think this is something I should be leading for a long time.
But like 26 is like late 20s, right?
I consider 26 mid 20s.
Mid 20s, okay.
I think past 27 is when you start going to late 20s.
Oh.
But anyway, I plan to teach here for at least a year or two, but we'll see. The drive is kind of killer. So
I want taking a PhD.
That's a good question. So we're in the question stage now. When I was doing research, I was heavily considering a PhD, but then I would have to had stopped working full time. And it's hard to be making money and then stop making money. And now, oh, you get paid as a PhD, but you get paid to basically eat and breathe and live in a student dorm.
Minimum wage.
Yeah, you get paid essentially minimum wage. And then you're in servitude to that school and your advisor for like 5 years, which could have worked out because my wife makes a Google salary, so we could have lived just off that. But I prefer making money right now, and a PhD doesn't really help me, especially if I'm not doing research anymore. I'm full-time, like I haven't published since 2020, which in the research world, that's an eternity. If you don't publish for like a year, you're out of the field basically. So if you want, I have a.
Wait, so is your wife like also a tech employee?
Yeah, she's a software engineer.
She's blood.
Yeah, so
Oh,
my active years
okay.
were like 2018 to 2020.
I would assume she gave you a referral, right?
No.
To Google. Oh.
Okay, here's the thing. Okay,
No.
yeah, that was my mistake. I went in without a referral because it was like, oh, I'm bored, and I had already reached like end game content and Final Fantasy. So like, yeah. So like, I guess I'll just send out some applications. Yeah, so my active years of publishing was 2018 to 2020. There's like another publication here that I don't agree with, so let's not pay attention to that. So I haven't published for 3 years. I'm essentially phased out of the research groups that I was in.
How many you managed to get your name on any paper before before you graduate Pomona?
Before I graduated here?
Yeah.
Okay, so a lot of people ask, why didn't I just go back to JPL? My advisor was a very bad person. So he had a bunch of interns and we all worked really hard and we finished the paper. And then our internships ended, so we left. And then before he submitted the paper, he took all our names off the paper and he put his friends' names instead. And that was supposed to be my first publication, which kind of is what kind of turned me off to research at the beginning. It was a very scummy move. And then he gave us a return offer to intern again. And all 4 of us said no. So it was, yeah, it wasn't even a prestigious conference. It was like really low tier. And he's like, why would you do that? Like, this guy is like near the end of his career. He was about to retire. So I'm like, you really don't need the publications, and all your friends are also near the end of their careers. Why would you you could have this would have been a canon moment for one of the 4 interns that you had, but now you took our names off and we all got really mad at him.
But to be fair, it's your canon event. That's
Yeah.
how you get into Google.
No, exactly. That was my canon event. Otherwise, I would be at JPL still.
What's
Yeah.
the salary difference? Okay, so you have to say the exact number, like what's the salary difference between Newick and like Google?
So who knows what levels that FYI is? Does anyone? One, two.
I don't know, do they put Newick salaries up there though?
They won't, but government salaries are public information.
Yeah.
Oh.
So here you could compare, and then you could compare, there's like similar-ish companies to the government, so you could do like Raytheon. And then let's get rid of these. I'm not gonna press these, so I don't want people to feel uncomfortable. But you can see the general comparison between them. I'll do the entry level one, and then it scales more aggressively the higher you go up in the company. So a P1 at Raytheon, okay, that's solid, 83K, and then a new graduate Googler.
Oh, okay.
It's like, this is actually
Like a full 6-figure plus.
yeah, this is actually lower than what new grads got in 2022.
To be fair though, like defense companies do have insane benefits, so there's that.
You would think that,
Really?
you would think that, but then Google's benefits are significantly better.
Well, to be fair,
Yeah,
to be fair,
you're right. It's Google. It like everything changes when it goes to big tech, right?
yeah.
And there was like I was going to talk about where I would go from here if I would go to another big tech company or not. The only other company I would want to go to is Apple. They gave me an offer when I was a student. They gave me an offer in like 2021 when I was looking again. But right now, I don't think I want to
Not even like
be there.
not even like Intel or Nvidia, because oh my god, Nvidia. Look at their stock, it's like insane right now.
Yeah, it's not about the stock.
Oh, okay.
It's about, okay, so
Sell the stock.
there's like, do you all know what like those radar charts are? When there's like, let's say this, and then you have something like TC, which is like total comp, and then work-life balance, and then like passion, how much you care about the company. And then this is the one people always forget. Are they hiring?
Yeah, that's the one.
So the thing with, so if you bring up FANG, which I hate that acronym because it included Netflix, but
And it doesn't include Microsoft.
and it doesn't include, I think big tech is a better word because people are like, oh, Netflix is part of FANG, but FANG was mostly about the stock appreciation over like 5 years. Netflix doesn't really hire anyone. Netflix only has about 10,000 engineers compared to Google, which has 180,000, not engineers, but 180,000 people. So if only half of those were engineers, that's like almost 100,000 of just engineering, right? Netflix also, for the longest time, didn't hire new grads. They only hired senior level engineers. But in like 2022, they changed it. So now they do hire new grads. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't, or if they did.
I've literally never seen their listings anywhere.
Yeah, see, exactly. Are they hiring? Who knows? So it's a lot of things, whereas like, you know, Microsoft is known as like the big tech retirement home because you don't do any work, but you also get paid worse than everyone else. And then in terms of culture, I really like Google culture and I really like Apple culture because they're extremely secretive about everything. And I hate how everything at Google kind of leaks and it's really annoying. But for Apple, you have to like sign NDAs. Even me, since I'm an operating systems engineer, and if we have ever had to do work with Apple, very blanket statement, then we've had to sign NDAs and we can't talk about anything we've worked with them on.
Do you feel like the thing that you like about a secretive culture, is it like, do you feel like that's influenced by your time at JPL and like Newick, or no?
I don't know, because that's true, right? Because in the government, especially in defense agencies, you have to get a clearance and you have to be really secretive about what you do. So I think I kind of agree with that. It might be because of that. But at the same time, like, I like when people are passionate about the stuff they work on. And in order to work at Apple, which I've tricked them both times that I interviewed, you have to love Apple products. Like you cannot be, you have to love Apple. So when I interviewed with them as a student, one of my roommates,
Windows PC.
yeah, my roommates, this one here, I borrowed her iPhone and MacBook to go to the interview. And then when I interviewed at Apple again, it was a virtual interview, and I borrowed, my wife is in the Apple ecosystem, and I borrowed her stuff when I did the Apple interview a second time, just to be like, oh man, I love Apple so much.
Yeah.
Please hire me.
Yeah, I can't go to Apple for that breathing.
There's no way. Yes.
Get a lot of sacrifice.
All right, so that's a good question, because usually you need to have one, and then once you get one, that's your ticket to get your second internship, which is usually when you have one internship, studies show that you at least get one favorable job offer. And like the big thing is a lot of the stuff that I did in school, like I was going to hackathons and I was developing things, and then these things are published on the internet. All my hackathon projects are on the internet. I participated in ICPC, which is an official collegiate program. So that is very easily an artifact, right? So you need to have like these real artifacts that recruiters know not only are they doing stuff, like it's there for other people to see. Projects I worked on, they're on GitHub. I think you can still see, I don't know, it's been a while, but you can probably see like how well I did at any of this stuff. Papers that I almost published, I guess. Publishing papers is great. And then, yeah, when you write on your resume too, that was what one of the bottom slides was going to be, but I didn't end up having time to write it. When you're starting to look for your first internship, you just need to have like projects and stuff on your resume showing that you're doing stuff and what you did, what frameworks you're learning. And then your second internship, and when you're looking for your job, you need to start framing your resume in a different way, because now you need to start framing your resume in terms of why was this impactful. So it's no longer just the what you did, but now you have to put quantitative artifacts, right? One of the things I worked on for one of the radars was I made a diagnostics program go from like 85% accuracy to 95% accuracy. So, you know, you're making something better, because engineering and science, it's not, a lot of it is not you're making something new, right? A lot of it is you're iterating over something. And that's the most important thing, like being able to iterate on something in a team setting is what really is like a software engineering role. So not only are you just adding something or making something, how do you make something better, and how do you quantify that? Because all these companies, they care a lot, and it's not just big tech companies, like companies care a lot about metrics and how you improved something, and how does that translate to, like, you don't have to worry about how that translates to revenue or whatever, because who cares? When you're an engineer, you shouldn't be caring about revenue. You should just be caring about building cool stuff and making things better and more efficient. So work on a lot of projects, work on projects with teams, do hackathons if you have the time to. They are kind of bad on your body. So I was drinking like energy drinks and eating those like mass-produced Costco muffins during all the hackathons. I'm sorry?
So good.
I know, they are so good.
Size of like a baseball.
No, they're so good, but then I started reading how much sugar is in each of them.
No,
So-
so like the thing is that like I start eating Costco cheese pizza for projects that we do. So like every semester we have like the 2-3 day period for demo day with like we're just in the project. Being like, you know, and then
Cheese
and
pizza.
the lead just comes in with like the freaking Costco pizza, like, you know what? And then I read somewhere that apparently it's like 40 grams of like protein in like one slice of like Costco cheese pizza. I'm like, what? Is that real?
That seems a lot for something that the only source of protein is cheese.
Yeah.
But anyway, do we have
Yeah.
any other questions before I think people start having classes? Yeah,
My previous question, how important is
I'm sorry?
how important was GPUs for you?
Oh, okay, so this is the other thing. I'm not trying to make it seem like I was like Superman and I did everything. In reality, I'm very mid. like I'm happy with how mid I am because you know the smarter you are, the more you realize how many problems there are in systems or whatever. All my coworkers, they're people who went to like Ivy League schools, top of their class, whatever. And then I'm like, yeah, I went to Cal Poly Pomona. And they're like, where's that? It's like, oh, I went to Harvard or Michigan or whatever. But it's great because Google, like one of the reasons that I wanted to come back and teach and mentor students to start going into big tech is because, you know, all these companies are keeping track of metrics, right? So one of the metrics are how successful are students from certain schools getting into Google, right? So I'm there. The president that was after me, he's also at Google. And there was we have like maybe a couple people in the Irvine office who are from Cal Poly Pomona. So the more we have people from our school going to Google, the more that Google will actually start getting involved with the school. The Google event that happened, this one, we didn't have stuff like this when I was going to school. We had Microsoft come here on my first year, and then big tech ignored us for like the rest of the time I was here. But the more that we can, you know, bring recruiters and more attention to the school, the better it is for the school for the future. And like I said, I care about the school. I hate to be like melodramatic or whatever, but I care about the school. But me, myself, I was very because I was so involved, I didn't really focus on grades too much. I had like a 3.3 at the end.
3.3 gang. Yo.
Yeah, 3.3 gang. But yeah, it's good to care about your GPA to a certain extent. Okay. Yes, office hours. So I am, after this meeting, I am going to hide in my secret lab. But if you want to talk about anything, I will be in my office hours.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everybody. I'm ending the meeting.